Welcome, Doc.
Thank you.
So tell us about your education journey. Where did you go to primary school, secondary? What kind of student were you? How supportive was your family? Did you do sports or was it just books, and more books?
Well, as Nigerians, which one should I answer first? So, do you know about Toy Market? Yes, so Toy Market came after Toy Primary School. Many people don't know that. Maybe people assume the market has always been there and there's a school behind it. No, the school was there first. So I was in Toy Primary School. That was my primary education up to class 8. I'm 844 product. That's why I can make a koroboi. I can stitch my own clothes because of 844. I can cook, but that's because of my mom and my dad. Anyway, so after Toy Primary School, I went to St. Mary's High School, Yala, where I was a good student-ish at the end. Between primary school, from around class 5, something happened. It's in my book somewhere. You'll find my book, you'll read it, you'll see. Something happened and I stopped studying. I stopped doing well. And that was to get my parents' attention. I just quit, basically. So I was not very bad student, but I wasn't doing very well. Then class 8, I kicked in gears, did my exam, passed well, went to St. Mary's High School, Yala. Again, from Form 1, I'm like, wait a minute. Since pass now, ni celebrate ata keki hakuna. I went back down again and I stopped performing so that at least when I get home, my dad would whoop me because he was angry at me not performing well. And that was a good thing for me because I was getting attention. Mm-hmm. So high school, eventually Form 4, I picked up again, did quite well for 2 reasons. One, my dad has always wanted me to become a doctor. He always told me from childhood, and I hated medicine because of that, because I was being told what to do. I wanted to be an entertainer. I've been doing comedy since I was a kid. Comedy mime, making funny faces, cracking jokes since I was a kid. So I wanted to be a comedian or an actor, whatever. And one day I told him that, he beat me up properly, like alinipiga. Atoa hiyo shetani ya ujinga. Haikutoka. Kumbe lijifiche karudi baadaye. Anyway, so eventually, just in Form 4 first term, just before he passed away, he looked at me one morning and said, hey, my son, will you ever become a doctor? He had been asking me the same question before, but I would ignore it. But this particular day, it was a very different kind of feel. The vibe was different. He looked very sad, which for me was, before, hadn't meant anything. But I think there was that kind of premonition you have that somebody might disappear one day. So I made up my mind to become a doctor just for him, not for myself, to become a doctor one day for him. Went back to school. When we were doing pre-mocks, I did very well. Mocks, I did very well. And by the time I was done with Form 4, I came out with an A something. Can't remember what it was. It's been over 22 years now. So sikumbuki, no wait, over 26 years since I left high school. So I don't remember which A it was, but it was an A something. And medicine became not a choice. I was forced to go for medicine. I never wanted it, as I said. I just woke up one morning. My cousin called me after my dad had passed away. He's like, well, unaenda Russia. I'm like, Russia, ile Kisumu hospital. Hapana, you're going to Russia, Krasnodar. You're going to do medicine. I'm like, wait a minute, how, when was the decision made? And why Russia? He's like, no, I found a school for you. I've registered for you. He registered for me the school before even asking me. Then he informed me I was going to Russia. So my plan was to say I don't have school fees and nobody can pay. My mom had retired. So I told him, but who will pay? He said, your sister will pay. I'm like, which sister? My younger sister hasn't got working. He said, no, your elder sister. I'm like, no, what lipa anado. So I called my sister, wait, say unado? She's like, no, Nicola. She got a loan. So he had called her and convinced her that she must pay for me. You know this thing with Africans about honoring the dead? So the idea was to honor my late father. So he said, I must do medicine. He found a school. She must pay. He convinced my mother. She was like, okay, sawa, tumilipie. So my sister got a loan and paid for me to go to Russia. So medicine was in Russia. In Russian. In the cold. So though it wasn't too cold. I was in Krasnodar, which is towards the south of Russia. It's not a very cold place. The coldest winter we saw was minus 26. That was once in my 8 years in Russia. Before that, nilikuwa depression. Once at least. That's why I learned how to drink. And so it was an interesting experience. Not very fun, the drinking part, but also a lot of interesting stuff happened. I began doing that when I was in the drama club. I did drama since 1996, so I am quite ancient. Mkisikia wahenga walisema, nilikuwa mmoja wao. Among the ancestors who made proverbs. Anyway, 1996 is when I joined the drama club. The drama club was a professional outfit, professional stand-up comedy, TV and stuff like that. So I was on TV, I was on stage doing a lot of stand-up comedy within the Russian comedy sphere. I was the only black at that time doing comedy. There was only one other black in entertainment. He was a dancer, a Nigerian guy. So we were just two. So I stood out. When you walk out into a whole crowd with all white comedians, into a crowd of white audience members, me just being there as a black was enough to make people laugh, not knowing what will happen next. Then I would speak fluent Russian. So I was writing, I was scripting, I was acting in Russian, doing whatever, singing in Russian. I happened to sing also, so that helped. It helped boost my comedy career. So I've been a comedian and an actor for 30 years, a medical doctor for 22 years since I began working after graduation in 2002, internship from 2004. So before internship, I happened to be at the National Theatre. I quit medicine. Came back with my degree, told my sister, by the way, mimi nimekumbuka hata sitaki medicine. That's because I failed the exam. I failed the pre-internship exam. So when you come from abroad, especially, and apart from the UK, I think, and the US, maybe any other country, you have to do pre-internship exam at with the board, the Kenya Medical Practitioners and Dentist Board. It's now called a union. So I went for the exam. I didn't realize when you stay in another country for 8 years and you speak another language for 8 years, you forget your regional languages. So I didn't realize I'd forgotten English. So we would come back and speak English, Kiswahili, Russian, Sheng, all at the same time. And I ended up going to the exam within the first week, registered for the exam. I remember it was Kenyatta Hospital. And I only remember one question, which I understood. And even that one I was guessing. The question was, paracetamol alleviates fever, yes or no? So I thought to myself, elevate ni juu. So alleviate must be the opposite. So I clicked yes. That was the only question I remember that I passed. I went for the verbal part, the oral part, I failed miserably because they would ask me a question, how do you treat malaria? So I would understand it in English, translate to Russian first, understand the question in Russian, translate back to English, but now I couldn't speak English. So I left and I went and quit medicine. I'm like, Miss Wezi, by the way. So I told my sister I'm going back to acting.
Wow, okay.
Yes.
So tell us, what was the best and the worst part of med school?
Oh, the best part was the comedy part. Basically because I got into depression. Before I went into comedy, I got into depression for about a year. I had to quit med school. I wasn't functioning anymore. And I had a choice of either completely being expelled, but the dean of students was very kind and gave me a chance to go and get treatment, sort myself out, and then come back. So I did. I was out for about 4 or 5 months of medical school, then went back completely refreshed, and it is comedy that got me back. I was watching some comedian doing mime, some Canadian guy called Coctemoche, and I told him I'm a mime artist from childhood. So I began now figuring that is something I love doing, mime, comedy mime, making faces, doing stuff with my body and my face to make people laugh. So that got me back on my feet. So when I went back to university in year 2, I had to repeat year 2, that's when the comedians found me. And I joined the club. That got me now back to class. I was doing well in school, and I began performing better. I had to do martial arts, so I was able to do my comedy with martial arts. But the martial arts was because of self-defense. Racism was high, it was top-notch. So every morning I would wake up, leave the house, and the first word I would hear was the N-word, or monkey, or gorilla, or any other thing that was derogatory to black people. 3 times a week I would be attacked physically. So I had to go and learn martial arts. I did taekwondo, karate, boxing, so basically mixed martial arts to defend myself. Luckily, I never had to use it much, used it once or twice, and yeah, they regretted. So that was the best part. The comedy part, which got me back into my top-notch performance in high school, in university, and of course the martial arts part, the sports part.
Amazing.
Yes.
How did you survive the internship? Give pointers to a new intern.
Interns, be very close to the nurses. Very, very close. Those are the people who will want to teach you everything you need to know. The doctors are okay, the consultants are okay, the medics, the registrars, they're fine, they're good, they'll give you the technical part. But the actual practicals, like doing whether it's MVAs or how to take care of a patient before theater, after theater, that's the nursing cadre. Work with the nurses. People, for some reason, there's this whole stupid thing about doctors being superior to nurses. That's on paper. Nobody gives a hell about that. They're the ones who helped me. They're the ones who built me basically as a doctor. And even beyond internship, those are the people that I tie myself to because they know basically everything. It may not be technical, but they know what needs to be done, how to take care of patients. Medics, doctors, we are not taught PR. We are taught, see the disease, treat the disease. Talking to the patient, how you relate to the patients, relate to the relatives, the family members, that's not part of what we are taught. We are not taught management, for example, as a core part of the curriculum. So that's where now the nurses came in for me to help me to understand that. So a lot of what I do now is based on what I learned from them. And of course, be ready to learn. As an intern, weka pride nje, leave it in the house. Hata siko get hospitali. Leave your pride and your medical degree and all the things you think about in your head, being a big head, leave it at home. Get there, just be ready to learn. It helps a lot. Makes it so much easier. Yeah.
How did you land into humanitarian sector, and which emergencies have you been involved in?
So I was jobless for 2 years. I happened to start a charitable organization called Cheka Mtu Yaishi, where I was using comedy and medicine, combining those two. Comedy was to create awareness. Medicine was the technical part and the academic part to let people know what it is. That is a major challenge in the health sector. So that time, one of the major concerns was neonatal deaths, babies dying, babies getting sick just after birth. The issue was lack of room heaters. Just put a baby under a room heater for 5 minutes. You've basically stopped most of the chances of getting pneumonia or getting hypothermia, very low body temperature. Most hospitals don't have them in the public sector, even sometimes private sector. So I took that upon myself. So Cheka Mtu Yaishi was basically, you laugh, you give us whatever money you can, whatever donations, we buy heaters, take to hospitals. So during that time, my organization I was working for, the NGO that I was working for, got a bit concerned. I was extremely famous. I was on all the media, whether it was written media, TV, anywhere you could find. Online, you would go and look for David Wasambla, Cheka Mtu Yaishi, and it was everywhere. There were links all over the place. So they got concerned and they wanted to fire me. I got wind of that and I fired them. So 2 years I was jobless. But when I was quitting, I thought, I'm doing charity. See, I'm doing a good job. I have passion, blah, blah, blah. I even wrote a book called The Power of Passion. So I thought, well, itakuwa rahisi. Walk in the park. I'll get funding. I'll get support. Wapi. 2 years I was jobless. I couldn't pay rent for over 9 months. I had 2 children by that time. They had to leave school, private school, go to public school because I couldn't afford. It was quite tough. But that kind of got me into humanitarian work because by the time I was looking for Ebola response jobs, I had got depressed. I thought, what nikakufe? I need to go and die because you know the way you do so much. I was super famous, but I had nothing. Already by that time I was an entertainer. I was on the Houses of Kawangware and Hapakule News. So people would see me on TV in a suit that looked very nice. On TV, you don't see that the suit was very dirty at the back of the neck because it hadn't gone to laundry for 3 years. You couldn't see the shoes were very dirty because I would wipe them very quickly before I go on set. So people thought that I was a very successful actor. I wasn't. The Kenyan entertainment industry can be brutal. I was getting barely any money. For being on those shows as Baba Boy, I was seen every month. I would get probably at most 16,000 take home. That's my salary. I had rent, I had children, I had diapers to buy, food to buy. So it was extremely horrible. So I had to figure out a way out. So when I didn't manage to die, my suicide attempt failed, which is good, I guess. I just went online and began looking for Ebola. So that was 2014, around August, September. Ebola was raging in West Africa. So I just went online and just Googled Ebola response jobs. And any job I could find, I applied for. 150 applications later, I found myself at the Ministry of Health applying. I was the first applicant for Ebola response jobs for the AU response jobs in the Ministry of Health in Kenya. My CV was the one that opened the file. They were shocked. They're like, what happened? Ebola? I'm like, yes. West Africa, yes. Daktari, uko sure? I'm like, niko sure, CV in the way. So I never got the job anyway. I went before they recruited with another organization under IOM, the United Nations. I was able to get a a job as a medical coordinator for that team. So I was the one who was leading that organization. We were about 4 or 5 Kenyans. I was a medical coordinator overseeing a group of about 15 international staff. There were some from the UK, some from South Africa, Tanzanians, Ugandans. And then we had the national staff were about 185. So close to 200 people that I was overseeing in that Ebola treatment unit in Liberia. This was Liberia. So that's how I began my Ebola response, my humanitarian work, international humanitarian work. I went to West Africa. I did Liberia 1 year, 1.5 years. I did Sierra Leone 1.5 years. Came back to Kenya for a few months. Worked in Unilever, what was Unilever Kericho. I was the head of the hospital and the whole health department. They tried to kill me because I was changing things too fast. I was basically clearing out corruption. They were not happy. My name was in parliament. They came with guns to the hospital to look for me. Good thing I'm not very social. Not that I'm antisocial, I'm just an introvert, so I don't go out much. So they didn't know who I was. They would come to the hospital looking for the doctor. They would find me there and talk to me and ask for Daktari. I'm like, Daktari Ayuko. And they would leave, but you'd see people with guns coming to look for me. Eventually, I went back to West Africa. So I'd done the second round of West Africa Ebola response, finished 2017, was jobless for 5 months. It wasn't so bad because I had savings. I had saved quite well. So those 5 months, I didn't struggle much financially with my family. Then just when I was getting broke, I got a job in South Sudan. So that's how I ended up in South Sudan, 2017 November. And I did 6 years in South Sudan with various organizations. So eventually I did with the UN, WHO. I worked for a huge fund manager, health pool fund, for the 6 years. I was jobless for another 6 months after Sudan. That was from December 2022 to about June 2023. So when the war broke out in Sudan, in I think it was February or March 2023, everybody was like, yeah, uliponea. My kids are like, Dad, where was the office? I could see our office being shot at and being bombed. I could see our guest house. So I'm like, yeah, that's where we used to go to work. That's where we used to go to our guest house. These are the supermarkets in Abomiwa. They're like, wow, you survived. Then I went to Ukraine. 2023 June, I was in Ukraine and I began the Ukraine response.
Amazing. Mm-hmm. You participate in Ebola response. What are some of the things that stuck with you about the mission?
Ebola, I think Ebola was where I began to crash the hardest. That's where also I discovered my passion for mental health. Ebola is scary. Ebola was scary. Ebola is scary. The strain of Ebola at that time was the one that had an 80% death rate. So out of every 10 patients, you were guaranteed 10 would die. No matter what you did, 10 would die. So you just count wagonjwa giza 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Wakishafika 10, najua hapo kati yao 8 watakufa in the facility. The other 2 might survive, but might not make it out there. Basically because Ebola is this kind of virus that destroys all the organs in the body. You might get cured. The virus might leave the system, but whatever damage it has caused will stay with you. So we had a patient who was cured, asymptomatic, everything was done, no virus. Took his shower, left the facility because you have to leave from a different exit from where you come in. Left the facility, we gave him new clothes. He sat down to wait for his people to come and pick him and died on the chair. So when they got there, we've called them like, oh, your patient is ready, come and pick him. By the time they're getting there half an hour later, the guy's died. So the question is, why is he not waking up? And I nani, Kamara, he's not waking up. Kume, the guy died, he had a heart attack because the virus had basically destroyed his heart muscles. So for me, that was the scariest in terms of my first response, and in scariest in terms of I could have died anytime. But that was also my suicide mission, number 2. So remember I tried to die in Kenya, I failed. So I'm like, if I go for Ebola response, because many doctors had died. So I was hoping to get Ebola. I was that depressed. I was hoping to get Ebola and then be among the 8 that don't survive. I didn't. Again, I washed my hands too well. Became a trainer in hand washing and hand hygiene. I'm actually an international trainer of trainers in infection prevention and control from the Ebola response. We developed the infection prevention control policies for Sierra Leone and Liberia. So I was among the people that developed that with WHO. So anyway, the most scary was that, the fact that we could have died anytime. One of us fell sick and all of us thought she had Ebola. And all of us thought we had Ebola because, hey, see, I greeted her yesterday. Yeah, I'm feeling my back pain. Aliniangalia jana, I'm feeling like a fever. There was nothing. She actually had food poisoning. So eventually, when they treated and discovered it was food poisoning, we were like, ilikuwa tu nijua, because the temperatures are hitting 45 degrees Celsius. So Ebola was crazy. And that's why when this whole saga of Ebola patients coming into Kenya the other day and building a facility, the whole story about we being ready as a country, that was a hoax. I will say that without fear of contradiction, and hakuna Subaru inaweza kuja. I will repeat that. Ebola should not be brought to Kenya intentionally. If it crosses the border, that's another thing. Those of us who were trained, who dealt with Ebola for 3-4 years, we are trained, we are happy to go and help. But if we intentionally import it by doing all these shenanigans that are being done, okay, it was done, whatever they did, it went. I'm a conspiracy theorist, so I'm assuming that something was happening behind this Ebola thing. But we're not ready. No matter what anybody tells you. There were doctors who came up and said, we were with WHO. WHO was never treating patients. WHO was sitting in an office and giving instructions. We were the ones who were treating patients when WHO comes to supervise. They never entered the red zone. We were in the red zone. So if anybody tells you that Ebola is easy to treat, it is not. If anybody says Kenya as a country is ready to treat Ebola, we are not. Because there's a mental state that changes when you hear there's a positive Ebola patient. And I remember we were trained for several weeks before we opened our own Ebola treatment unit. We were ready. For about 4 weeks, I was the one training every single staff of the 200 staff on hand washing. We made sure every day we did hand washing 3 times a day, the proper procedure. We did donning and doffing of that personal preventive equipment, putting it on, taking it off 3 times a day minimum, sometimes 4, 5. Because putting it on is okay. When you're wearing it, you're okay. When you enter the ward, you're okay as long as you're wearing it. The problem is taking it off. Because the moment you're going out of the Ebola treatment zone, your assumption is you have Ebola on your clothes. So if you touch your eyes, touch your nose, touch your mouth, 99% of chances are you get Ebola. Then remember, 80% death rate. 8 out of 10 patients will die. So you might be among the 8. You don't want that. So I was training staff to make sure that when we're removing it, all those steps in that 20 minutes of removing are carried out as carefully as possible. So how many Kenyan doctors will tell you that they can don and doff with accuracy and not touch their face at any point of that? How many have actually been in Ebola setting? Because when you're training, it's okay. The problem is once you've come out of the Ebola treatment unit, you're sweating, you cannot see the sweat in your eyes, and you're scared. Your anxiety is 150 over 100, and you're trembling, and you need to take off all your stuff pole. Chances are extremely high you will touch yourself if you're not trained and you haven't gone through the process and you're not careful. Very few doctors, unless those who've gone to actual Ebola response and treated patients, can tell you they are ready and are able to do that. Very few. So Kenya is not ready for Ebola at all, unless we have to. Keep watching for part 2. It gets hotter, it gets badder, it gets worse. Kenya hapo, if you touch that dial, finger will break.